¿Qué ondas, primos?
Primas.
Y primes.
Welcome to
My Primos.
My Primos.
My
Primo
podcast.
My name is Fredie.
My name's Kevin Garcia.
My name is Elia Maria Madrid.
Well, this is Chikume, whenever I can make it.
My Primos podcast discusses all things fandom and pop culture,
From comic books,
Movies?
To whatever obsession we have this week.
but with a Latine
Latine.
Malatine.
perspective. Remember, we're all primos,
We're all primes.
We're all primos.
no matter what part of the world we're from. ¿Qué ondas, primos, primas, and primes, and welcome back to my Primos podcast. My name is Fredie, and with me tonight is my primo and yours, Mr. Kevin Garcia.com.
Yo.
Say what's up, Kevin.
What's up, Kevin? I have
Oh my God. Can you believe that I've missed that?
I have not been
I
able to
missed
say it for a while. Like when I'm hosting,
right?
it doesn't work. When I'm not here, I hear you guys talk about it, but oh man.
I mean, I'm okay with the guest doing it. You know,
That's
I'm just
true.
saying the John Avina episode was good. Props to everybody there. Shout out to John
Look.
Avina.
Everyone needs a Kevin Garcia in their lives, and sometimes it's John Avinia.
Everyone needs a Kevin Garcia. That's the theme, man. Theme of the season. Theme of the season. But Primos, I am back. I was gone, but I'm now back, stronger than ever. Some might say I'm even invincible, which is one of the
Ooh.
topics we'll be covering tonight. Primos, so
Yeah,
stay tuned, as well as
Are
Mr.
you? No,
Are
but
you?
it's just yeah, there's so much cool animation going on right now. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, talking about Invincible, of course, Xmen 97 up to this point, which by this recording, we are at the penultimate.
Yes.
Episode.
Yes. Almost to the end, and already guaranteed to have new seasons.
I'm excited, and we'll get right into it. But first, Primo, of course, remember, you guys can follow us at My Primos Podcast and at all our streaming platforms, not just the one that Kevin knows, which of course is Spotify, iTunes.
Yes.
Google
of course.
Podcast is still there for another month. We're on Stitcher. We're on Amazon. You can tell Alexa, hey, Alexa, play My Primos Podcast, and we will appear on there for you guys. Primos, did you know that, Kevin Garcia?
Yes, well, I didn't know about the Google thing, but I know that we have, speaking about a limited time offer, we are also available in small bursts on TikTok, at least until the government shuts us all down.
Literally, you make to 10K and it's shutting down. But
Yeah, well,
The
that's how it works.
content.
That's how it works. That's how it
the
works.
content you've been doing has been really, really good recently, man. I've been sitting there
Wait,
like, man, this
recently?
is deep. This is fun. The old stuff was cool.
All right, all right.
And I really want somebody else to come along and try to challenge you again. I like those videos more.
Yes, definitely.
They're fun.
Well, there was literally one guy. So, Comic Drake is a big comic book YouTuber that I've been collaborating with on a small scale a couple times, and he responded to somebody's video where the guy clearly just hadn't read the comic book. He just wanted to complain about it being woke or something, and so he responded making fun of the guy, and I responded as well with a video explaining exactly why that first guy was so incorrect, right? And well, that guy finally responded to Comic Drake's video saying, well, I do read the comics. And I said, really? Did you? And then he just kind of gave me a like tongue out emoji and called it a day. So I'm like, a part of me is like, I want to tag him in my video, see if he'll do a stitch to mine. But I'm like, do I really want to get into an online beef?
I
Nah,
think you're like
not my style.
not instigating something, but you're also like kind of like you're starting something. Let that guy chase
I-
you, you know?
I'm encouraging people to, lay their own traps.
Okay. Entrapment. Gotcha. And of course, Primos, you can follow along at myprimospodcast.com, where we have movie reviews whenever I get to watch some movies that I can sit down and write a review for. And of course, all of our episodes on our social media. But
You know what?
Kevin.
I love your movie reviews. I love that they are there on myprimospodcast.com. I have also been doing weekly movie reviews for the past month or two.
I was going to mention.
A-
Yeah,
and
you've been
the
doing
thing
those.
Yeah, now they're not getting any views because obviously TikTok says you are in this box and you will only be in that box forever.
You're only a
So-
comic book man.
Exactly, which honestly I can live with that, but I still want to do them anyway. So even though TikTok only shares my comic book posts and does not share my movie ones, I still do them anyway. Mostly indie movies because I
Kevin,
think indie movies need more love.
I think you have a place at myprimos
I think
podcast.com.
so too. Maybe
Just saying.
we should post those
know-
videos on myprimospodcast.com.
There's some kind of like cohesion,
There's some synergy there.
synergy.
Yeah.
Synergy. Well, before we dive into, I talked about Invincible because we're going to mention that tonight. But me and you are going to just kind of talk about what we've been watching as far as cartoons or animation, what have you,
Yeah.
here recently. And we are going to talk about Xmen 97 and Invincible a little more in depth. And Kevin, what have you been kind of watching outside of those that you want to bring up?
Well, it's a few months back now, because for some reason Disney put them all out in 1 week or 1 day rather, instead of no, it was 1 week. What If Season 2? They put out over 9 days, which was really weird. Doesn't really give you much time to like digest. I'm not a big fan of the whole massive, dump everything on Netflix at a time. But I watched that back in January and December, and then the one I've been watching lately is this anime Delicious in Dungeon, which is a lot of fun. It's
Elia recommended that one.
Yeah, well, she's been all on this Dungeons and Dragons kick, which I can't wait for, because I really think it'll be a lot of fun. I've never actually played a full game of Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm all for it, and I told you guys, and John knows, like we're definitely gonna do it, and we want to really put it front forward and take advantage of it and have fun. I think it'd be a great idea, and why not? I love what you guys did. I love his whole idea of involving his family. I don't know what kind of adventure we would run into. I don't know. Like, we would make our own.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be really fun. It all depends on who's mastering the dungeon, so to speak. Yeah, we got to figure that out. Yeah.
So tell me a little more about Delicious in Dungeon, because I know it's about these adventurers, D&D-ish kind of fantasy-ish adventurers, and they discover what.
So the whole thing about the Delicious Dungeon is that I don't know how exactly Dungeons and Dragons took hold of like Japanese pop culture's consciousness, but like they've been a big part of anime and manga for decades, like way more than they ever took over in the US. Like the US definitely had an influence on Dungeons and Dragons influence, which was The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. That's definitely had an influence on a lot of pop culture here in the US, but not to the extent that Dungeons and Dragons specifically. I mean, like the Dragon Quest games, Final Fantasy, so many isekai anime where they'd go through another world, all that stuff. It's all just basically recreations of some iteration of Dungeons and Dragons, and Delicious in Dungeon does that very literally, but then flips this game mechanic system on its head and says, yeah, but what if it was all about like nature and biology, and all of the characters, all the main characters, are trying to figure out ways they can find proper nutrition out of eating the monsters they encounter. And it's so weird. Like, it's obvious stuff, like they'll attack a walking mushroom and then kill it and eat it, which makes sense. All right, it's about as smart as a chicken and it's made out of mushroom. Makes sense. But then in another episode, they'll be fighting living armor, which is a trope from these kind of fantasy games where you actually have like a hollow armor attacking you. Like, how do you eat hollow armor? Well, spoilers for that specific episode, but they peel apart the metal plates and they find out that it's actually not a haunted ghost or something. It is a colony of mollusks living inside the metal that are moving together to protect the colony. And so that's why they move around like that. And I'm like, it's such a genius concept that like doesn't at all change the gameplay elements of like a haunted, armor, but it 100% gives you this new, nature element, which then they can eat. So it's cool.
No, it's cool. It's like kooky. I've only caught like 1 episode and a half, and I like it. I love anime, and I'll sit there and watch. Dude, I've been guilty of watching the most obscure anime stuff. Like, I watched an anime where they compete in memorizing poetry. Ooh. And it's like so out of control, like over the top, almost shonen, but they literally just memorize poetry lines.
I was just gonna say, I love how a lot of like when people talk about shonen, they're talking about, it literally translates to like young men stories. And the thing is, those are usually like Dragon Ball or Yu-Gi-Oh or something, where it's just like hero goes to fight monsters or competitions or whatever. But like so many of them are about like really specific sports and like cooking and poetry. It's like, that's crazy, man.
Why not, man? Like, you can make, that's proof concept that as long as there's a good character to follow and development comes with it and growth, any genre or any topic can be made into something fun and enjoyable. So I enjoy it. For me, as far as on that vein, I've been rewatching a couple of things. My son and me have been watching Infinity Train. I don't know if you caught this one.
No, everybody told me to watch it, and right when I was like, all right, I'm going to make some time now, HBO took it off.
Yeah, which sucks, because now it's like unfortunately, you're gonna have to. Sorry, my dog was whining, but
Well, I mean, how
you're gonna
old
have
is
to
that
find
dog?
its. He is. Let me see here. I'm gonna show the primos here. Come here. Look, this massive. No, this thing here. It's 5 months old. Thing is as tall as me now.
See, that's your mistake. You should have a dog that's not that young. You need an older one. I have here a 20-something cat. So no, she is. Well, she's also whiny now that I think about it.
There you go, Max. There you go,
Yeah,
Max. Say bye.
this is what my Primos is all about. The furry Primos.
Furry primos.
So what
I don't know what
anime?
you want. You want to go outside? Go over there. But back on this one, Cartoon Network had this great series called Infinity Train, and each season was a different person going through the train. Right, the train was
Mhm.
literally a train running through this huge deserted land, and every single train car was like a different world or universe or like a trial because you had to find a way to the next car, and there was ways to unlock the door to go to the next one, be it a puzzle, be it a music thing, be it a fight, what have you. It was awesome, but it was always about growth. Each character was going through something. This show is about 4 or 5 years old, if I'm
Mhm.
mistaken. But the fact that I'm gonna give something away, but one of them was going through a divorce. His parents are divorcing, and they're dealing with that separation and how they need to not necessarily blame themselves and focus on what they do well and growth and how things are still going to be okay, and not dwell on the fact that they did something wrong, right? And also keep themselves from growing and doing what they really want to do and being almost like self-sabotaging in a way. So it's just a really deep story, which is presented to mostly like 10-year-olds, you know what I mean?
See,
And
that's the kind of
each
show that I
season
love.
does that.
Yeah, that's the kind of show that I love, where you have something that's ostensibly for kids, but has so much more depth to it. That's why I love. That's why I loved Adventure Time. That's what people keep telling me about Bluey, which I've not seen yet. But everybody keeps telling me about that.
I have not sat down and watched Bluey because I guess I just not. I don't have a kid that age, or I just haven't really sat down and watched it. I know of it, but it's just not my deal. But I hear that it's deep and there's a lot going on in there. But I would recommend if you like things like Gravity Falls,
Mhm.
if you like Adventure Time, Over the Garden Wall. These are amazing, amazing shows that have such a short life. Adventure Time was huge; it had a long
Yeah,
life. But we even have Fiona and Cake,
of
which, by
course.
the way, awesome.
Yeah, of
I
course.
definitely
Ooh,
recommend watching those
I've only
shows.
watched a couple episodes of that. I keep forgetting to watch the rest of it. I need to do
Dude, you're
that.
missing out,
I know.
man.
Because originally I thought it was going to be just alt reality, and then I'm watching it. I'm like, no, wait, this is tied into the actual Adventure Time show. And then
Oh,
it
it
goes,
is
then they
very
get
much
like,
so.
then I get to episode like 2 or 3, and I'm like, wait, they're now in another reality. I'm getting so I really need to go back and watch that.
You definitely, for a comic book man that understands the Marvel universe and every single numbered verse and how it works.
Look, I know so many people are getting tired of the multiverse already, which kind of sucks for me because I love the multiverse as long as it can be done right, it can be done stupid, and I think done right, it's really fun.
All right, Primos, well, stay tuned. We'll jump right into our main topics tonight. Invincible. Welcome back, Primos. I'm glad you enjoyed that little break as much as we did. And Kevin, talking about all these animated shows that we're excited about, for example, the ones that got pulled off Max,
Oh my
you
lord.
would think that shows with such great scores, critics love it, fans love it, we're pining for more, would be able to survive things like big
Exactly.
corporate decisions like that. I mean, you damn near have to be.
Invincible.
There's our attempt, Primos, to do
Yeah.
something tied into the show. But yes, we're going to start tonight with talking about season I want 2.5 and 2
Well,
because they
yeah,
split the
yeah,
season up.
Yeah, well, because we did talk a little bit about the first half, but the whole season. But not only that, I want to touch on season 1 for just 1 second, and that is,
Yeah.
oh wait, I forgot. In between seasons, we also got the Adam Eve special.
Adam Eve special, which I
Right.
really enjoyed. Yeah.
But no, my big thing is that season 1 was well written. Like I always thought the original comic book was well written, right? But like the season 1 improved on the comic book. Like it took stuff that didn't age well, like his friend who coming out as gay in the comic. That's not really. It doesn't have the same effect today as it would have, 25 years ago, and then it just the timing was better, right? But the animation of season 1 was so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. There was literally scenes where he's flying through the skies and it's just sliding the picture of him across the sky. Like this is like the Marvel 1967 cartoons. It was that bad.
But they even made fun of it in the season 2 episode where, spoilers, he goes to Comic-Con and meets his favorite, cartoonist or comic book creator.
I think we're all good
even
doing
talk about it.
spoilers here. Yeah. By the way, so much of Invincible, because I read the whole comic book series, right? So much of it is often scene for scene what happened in the comics. And in that particular one, it seems like they're kind of making fun of Robert Kirkman to an extent, right? But in the original comic, they're making fun of another comic book creator, Brian Michael Bendis, who was known for doing overly wordy dialogue and just having the artist repeat the same panel over and over again, just so that
different dialogue.
Yep. Yeah, and that was it. And sometimes even just panel with no dialogue and be the same panel again. And so they did the whole joke, and somehow they took that joke that is very much an in joke for the comic book industry and then made it a perfect joke for just people who watch the show. Like it worked so well.
Yeah, because it was a huge gap. I mean, there was a 2.5 year gap roughly.
God, it wasn't that long.
We got season 2, and then we got season 2.5 because we got
they broke it in half.
3 or 4 episodes. Then we had a break. Then we got treated by the Adam Eve movie-ish episode, which was awesome.
Very good.
Then we had to wait another 4, 5, 6 months to get the second half of season 2.
Yeah,
here we are. What are your thoughts, man? You've been reading, so let's everybody. Full disclosure, there will be spoilers, but you've read the books.
So because I've read the books, I'm more interested in what you have to say. Like, is there anything that happened this season that surprised you that you're like, I didn't expect them to go back to that, or I didn't expect them to go there, or that kind of stuff?
So, okay, not having read anything, when we
I would start with Omni-Man. I would start with Omni-Man. That's like the biggest one, right? Because we knew season 1 from episode 1 that he was trouble. And in the comics, they didn't reveal that for like, I think 7, 8 issues in before they finally revealed that. But it wasn't till the end of the season that you got to see him really tear everything apart. And in this season, what was your take on him?
I don't know. I felt like there was a point in the show this season where Omni-Man is struggling with becoming human. That's kind of what I took away from it, because he's always been blending in, being the quote unquote like the Superman of that world, right?
Yeah.
And for him to always still have, hey, I'm not like you, I'm above you, I'm better than you, all this superiority that he has, right? Omni-Man, right there it is in the name. And then to have to destroy something that maybe not initially he wanted to care for as much as he did, but as you see the season go through and he's now at another planet, he's now formed another family, unit, and he's now helping more and more people, and he just decided to abandon everything just to stop being the main issue there, because he can't deal with what's happening on Earth. Like, he knows Ultramites are going to come through, he knows that, but he can't deal with the emotional fallout of what he did to his whole family, to everybody in the world that saw him as that hero. So that shame hit him, because somebody that doesn't give a fuck doesn't give a fuck.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm above you, I don't care. But for the fact for him to flee like that, it makes him seem more emotional, more human, more shameful, right? As opposed to that race that we see in the season that did have no care about what these lesser beings think of them. And Omni-Man, and I'll get to Mark when we get to Mark, but Omni-Man to me seemed like he's discovering all these emotions and feelings that he never had a chance to really explore. And because of that, we see a less, how can I say it? Well, not a weaker Omni-Man,
Less perfect.
less perfect. I just see, I see the lines and the cracks, and I go, okay, you're becoming human.
This is something I wondered after season 1 because I knew this was coming, right? I knew that we're eventually going to see him, this other side of him. And in the comics, it was dozens of issues, very slowly getting the audience to be like, no, maybe we can trust him again. And I was like, how are they going to do that in a show? Because that's going to take way too long. And I think it all comes down to J.K. Simmons. You know, he does such a good job with the performance. You talk about him being superior. There's a line he says at the end of this season where he is 100%. I think it's the very last scene of the season, actually.
Yeah.
And he's sympathetic now. He's come to realize that he cares about, but it's his phrasing. He says lesser beings, and he doesn't say it like in a demeaning way. It's just, I mean, matter of fact, like I am an invincible, immortal God compared to all of you, but he doesn't say it in any way that feels like he's full of himself. He's doing it with, it's like to empathetically say how much better you are than everybody else. and
But
that
almost to the
all
point
comes
where
down to
he's
J.K.
like,
Simmons.
he's almost like, damn, I can't believe I'm that
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
more powerful than you all.
But that's my point. Like the lines are almost the same as in the comic, but it's the delivery that makes it so believable, and it works. But that raises, like, let me, before we move on to the characters, can you as an audience member forgive him for Chicago?
No,
Because there's a lot.
I mean, to be honest, there's so much that happened there. The fact that we're gonna get there because we need to get there, but what I'm saying is, me watching what he did in season 1 broke my heart.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, as a father, as a human being, as a child, right? Like having, no matter what, and everybody's story is different. I don't want to assume anything for anybody out there listening or watching us. But for the most part, when you're a young child, your father is that super being to some extent. Whatever parent you have, an extension of that, be it a mother, be it a father, whomever. But that parental being becomes that, this is the super being in my life.
Yeah.
And for that person to turn on you, hurt you so much, not only yourself, but everyone around you, put them in danger, and almost literally just throw everything out the window that you knew. It's something unforgivable. But
not just, well, I mean, especially to the family, but like even beyond that, to the general public, we definitely saw it in the comic. But I felt like even with the animation being a lower quality in season 1, it was so much more visceral in the show, lingering on people being torn apart. It was,
dude, the scene in the train.
The train. Oh my God. I didn't even remember that train
That
being more
became
than, I think that was like
a
one panel in
fatality
the comic.
in Mortal Kombat. It literally is Omni-Man's fatality.
They made a pop of it, apparently, of the track. Why would you do that?
I want it.
Funko Pop. Jesus.
I want it just because I'm like, that, those scenes hit. And it's a reminder of something. I had my son draw me the Godzilla. Remember the Godzilla -1 scene where the young lady sees Godzilla coming from the bus window, the train window? I had him draw that for me because that scene, that fear in her eyes, that like, oh no moment, that meant like it hit a certain chord with me. That scene with the train, and at the end with Mark's bloody body saying like, yeah, but I have you. That whole thing tears you up, man.
So how about Mark's development?
Okay, not having read the books, I think Mark's struggling with becoming more Viltrumite than what he expected.
Well, yeah and no, but I think it's also that like it's a weird kind of expectation because like let's take Omni-Man being Superman, right? If your dad was perfect, then there's this expectation you have to be perfect, and it'd be hard to live up to. But in this case, his dad's a monster, and literally half the people he talks to are disappointed that he's not becoming a monster, and the other half the people are just saying, well, you're going to do that anyway, you know. And a few people that are telling him no, it's okay, you can see in their eyes that that's not what they're thinking. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a weird kind of, I don't feel like he is becoming that Viltrumite monster, but the weird societal pressure of you're going to do it anyway, so you might as well.
it's pushing him towards that. Like we talk about these situations where people say the environment drove him to do that.
Yeah.
Like it feels as though there's so much pressure. Literally, he went to go help, which was to see his father. Let's just put out there, and now he has a sibling, right?
Yeah. Which we need to talk
Immediately,
about that.
yeah. Well, we talk on that, and yeah, because it's the whole
That's a whole
barrel of snakes when it comes to that whole thing. But the fact that he has to go to this other, his responsibility that's expected of him. Cecil's expecting a lot out of him, like almost like, hey, you owe, even though he's not saying it. He almost makes him feel like, hey man, your old man did all this, so now you got to do extra. Like not in so many words.
I always love the Cecil character. I love that he is that sleazy spy of Nick Fury, and he's coded to look like a bad guy because in real life, if somebody has scars on their face, that's just who they are. But in comic books, the coding is always, oh, they're the bad guy. But no, Cecil earnestly wants to help. He helps in his own way, which doesn't always work out, but like he earnestly wants to be a good person, and I love that character.
There are times where Cecil comes off as, all right, man, you have a job to do.
Yeah, no,
And I think
obviously.
that we accept that is your job. And because you have to do that, we turn a blind eye to sometimes his shitty decisions, what he's done. But then we learn throughout the episodes in this season, especially, that
Mhm.
he's done things because he wants to help those closest to him. Especially with, I think we'll touch on it here in a moment, but like Mark's mother.
Yeah.
But before we move there, Mark, like I said, the reason I say that I feel like he's struggling is because, look, he's trying to go to college. He's dealing with that whole old age story we see in comic books. They can't have both, they have to choose one side or the other. They can't be teenagers and have a good time because you still have the same responsibilities of the whole world relying on you, right? Being a superhero. He can't have a relationship with his girlfriend, which, tell me if I'm wrong, Kevin, because you read the books.
Yeah.
There is a huge difference between her
100%.
attitude at season 1 and season 2.
Okay, I've heard that and I disagree. I've heard some people complain about that. Apparently, I'll tell you what took away from it in a minute. But I've heard people say that Amber in season 1 was like either ungrateful or something because she would complain about him going off to save people, and that here she's either better or more complaining depending on who's talking. And I 100% disagree. Amber in the comics was just a pretty blonde white girl that he liked in school. And when she finds out he's invincible, she's basically like, cool, I'm dating a superhero, and she's a little bit more deep than that, but not by much. And then when it ends, I mean, they do have a little ending as well, but she's not a very deep character by any means. And this Amber, she works at the food clinic. She is constantly fighting for people's rights, encouraging Mark to do the hard things, even when they're hard. It's every step along the way, she's a good person. Plus I hate to point out to like TV tropes, kind of stereotypes, but there is a trope in a lot of shows of like the disposable black girlfriend, where they're going to have a woman of color who is the love interest of the main protagonist, but eventually he's going to find the real true pairing. And it's like, that's unfortunate. But I really felt in season 1 that she was a great character. And in season 2, I felt that she had a lot more agency than she already had. So when they do break up, it makes sense for her, not just for him. Like literally in the comic book, during the breakup scene, he says to her, and yeah, I think I'm going to go ask out Adam Eve tomorrow, like in the breakup scene,
Wow.
And she's like, oh, I didn't think you'd have to say that, but okay. Like it was understood, but you didn't need to say it. But in this one, no, it's not about him looking for the next girlfriend. It's about these two, where they are and where they will always be based on their backgrounds and their backgrounds in terms of superhero versus non-superhero, and I really like the character, and I hope we get more of her in some capacity,
They took her teeth away, man, from season 1.
You see, but I think the big difference is that literally her boyfriend had the most traumatic time that you could possibly have. It's like, not only did he live through 9/11, he was in the middle of it, and his dad was the one doing it, So she didn't so much lose her teeth as she did really try to become supportive of somebody who has dealt with so much trauma, he's going to have PTSD for the rest of his life.
No, because this season,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't dislike her at all. Don't get me wrong, but I think that I noticed that she's not as combative, and I think it goes back to what you said, right? Just thinking it over. She's just trying to be supportive and understanding. She doesn't want to nag the guy to death. She doesn't want to give him a hard time. She wants to help him.
Yeah.
Yeah. She understands. Like, oh well, he has to go, and she even says it. It'd be hypocritical of me to complain and make you quit that job because you would refuse to help the world. It'd be downright wrong of me, ethically wrong of me to do that. So I can respect that. But I think that it felt as though, even though the relationship arc in this season was a main thing that we needed to see happen, I think we were all reading the signs on the wall. I think this isn't going to work out because they keep trying, and just stuff keeps coming in the way. And so it's like, what is it? The best things happen when you're trying to make plans, or the worst things. I forget how that phrasing goes.
Yeah. It's just the best laid plans of mice and men.
There you go. Thank you. And there's always something there because they tried so hard to make it work. I'm working part-time with Cecil. I'm going on vacation. I'm doing this. I'll be in school. I can do the dean's list. It's just not going to happen for you, Mark. Yeah. And Mark keeps getting beat down in every angle. He sees his dad. His dad leaves. He gets beat to shit by the Viltrumites again. His dad's taken, probably dead in his eyes. Now he has a little brother.
Yeah.
And then the reality of, hey, you got to go home now. Like, because the planet's pretty much dying. The race dies pretty quick from what we understand.
Yeah.
And now he has to come home and present mom with a brother.
Yes. Which that's, when you come down to, like, can you forgive Omni-Man? And you have to think about it from the white, because the mother is not super developed in the comic. She does get more toward the latter half of the series, but in the beginning of the series, she's not super developed. We got a lot more out of her here. Again, thanks to the actor, thanks to Sandra Oh, I think is the actor.
Sandra Oh.
Yeah, and thanks to the actor, so much more developed. And so from her point of view, there is no reason to take this child in, because it's not just, oh, my husband cheated on me. It's not just, oh, he left me and had a new kid, and now this is the kid I have to take care of. No, he killed a city. I mean, come on. And it's not Oliver's fault,
He called her a pet.
He called her a pet. Oh, my Lord.
He called her a pet.
Jeez.
Do you know how, like, my wife sat there and gasped as soon as he said that? I was like, whoa, that's low. And here we are. She's raising another kid on her own. I mean, and Mark's like, he's my brother. And I love the acting from, guys, blanking. He's been in everything. Steven Yeun.
Yeah.
Because the delivery for Mark, those whispers, that when he kind of like, he drops down in volume and octave and goes like, well, hey, it's my brother. And you're like, yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, he's your brother, and literally has no, he's an innocent child. And
100%.
Debbie's not going to sit there and just ignore an innocent child. And she even says it. She goes, my ex's new child, love child, is sitting in my kitchen, and I'm here, trying to figure out how to do daycare now. Like, look at that. She just shines, man, as a character in this show. Sadly, now Omni-Man's whining about her in space. I miss my wife.
Well, he's not
Fuck you,
whining,
dude.
though. It's not the whining part. No. The reason that line is so important is because that is not something he is supposed to do. All right.
You're right.
It's like if a human were to suddenly say, like, I breathe water, like, it doesn't make any sense to him. It doesn't have any footing in reality for him to say that, and yet he's saying it. And that's what makes it so fascinating, is that he's like, I do that, as much as I was complimenting J.K. Simmons' delivery, I do think that one line could have been a little bit more intense, because I feel like the gravity of it wasn't quite grasped for the last line of the show.
As a watcher, never reading the books, hearing him say and go, here's my wife, and almost like a throwaway line, and then it ends the season. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
it bothered me.
I would have rather he'd been like, I think I miss my wife. Like I wish there was some
Yeah.
pause on that. Yeah.
Maybe they can go back because digital age and redub
Well,
it.
Speaking of going back, if it's okay if we move on for a second to the next step
Yeah,
of this.
definitely.
Um,
Let's
a-
move forward.
as somebody who read the comics, there were a few things that I was expecting that they did eventually, but not the way I would have thought. All right. So, for example, Omni-Man's civilian identity, he's a novelist and he wrote sci-fi novels, right? Well, in the comics, they don't reveal that for a long time. And it's like, oh, by the way, this could be the secret to the future. And I'm like, if you're making the show and you know it's going to come up, they should have mentioned it in the first season.
Way
Like,
sooner.
it should have come up. And then Donald, Cecil's assistant, I knew that he was going to be a robot, but then they just had they exploded him and stuff. And I was like, no reference to the robot stuff. That's not going to come up yet. And they don't reference it. And what else? There was one other thing that I was like, I expected a little bit more buildup, and they just dropped it. I don't remember what it was right now, but stuff like that, where it's like, they know these things are here. And as much as I love Robert Kirkman's writing, I felt like he didn't, pace those out as well as he could have. They could have fixed that in the show, and they just also left it being like, oh, we'll mention it later. Oh, I know what it was. Duplicate. That was the other one.
Dude, so let's talk about that. So at the beginning of this mid-season of this, we get, what is it? The squids invade.
Yeah.
And they have to go to space, right?
Squids, I think they call them.
And yeah. And so they deal with that whole arc with the alien, the Martian, pardon, and mind control over the human. And here we go. On Earth, they leave Rexplode, Duplicate.
Shrinking
and
Ray.
I forget her. Yeah, Shrinking Ray.
And Monster Girl.
Monster Girl does.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah, but she's not. Yeah, she didn't go on this mission with Rexplode, right?
She also got beat up.
I remember
was
being
in
beat
the
up.
hospital recovering.
Oh yeah, you're right.
She was like the
You're right.
only survivor, it seemed, because Rexplode getting shot in the head.
That was a trippy thing when that episode happened, and I was like, oh shit, they killed Rexplode, like, and they killed Duplicate. That was such an awesome death for a duplicating person, because he usually has to split away and to survive, right? And then he catches both of them and just goes, and it's like, oh, like, wow. And then what is it? The Eternal? He loses his mind.
Yeah, the Immortal.
And Immortal, excuse me. And the Immortal loses his mind because he was involved with Kate. I love that whole. Rex had to like grow the fuck up after that.
Yeah. And by the way, I love pointing this out. It's not so much a spoiler because it's not really plot relevant ever, but the Immortal is Abraham Lincoln. Like he literally was.
That's hilarious. I did not know that.
During the Civil War.
He has the chops too, the mutton chops.
He does. He's just
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like it's only ever revealed in like one panel, and we're like, wait, what? Like,
it makes sense. It makes sense now.
I just love pointing it out. Like, that's literally the president.
Abe Lincoln's he's been a vampire hunter. He's an immortal. He's everything, man.
Yep. But yeah, with Duplicate, I knew that she was coming back because I knew that we were going to get. One second. I knew that we were going to get more of her later, but I was surprised at how long they took to get there. And actually, I appreciate it. And my partner asked, why is Mr. Immortal making such a big deal out of it? Why is he quitting over this girl he was dating for 2 weeks? And my takeaway is this. If you've been living for, at the bare minimum, 200 years, right? Bare minimum. He has gotten used to, you fall in love with somebody, they grow old and die. Or you fall in love with someone and years later they leave you. Or you fall in love with someone and they're with you for a while and then they get killed. All of these things he's seen. But with her, they barely had a few weeks. And for somebody who has made peace with the fact that everybody he loves will die before him, that was a shock. The idea that you could have that, and human lives being a blink of an eye to him to begin with, being an actual blink of an eye, that's what broke him. Not necessarily that he's never loved anyone before, but because the specifics of this situation were just so, on top of everything else that had been going on with Omni-Man and everything else anyway, were just so much. and I can appreciate that. I think it's a different take on immortality.
I can see that after you explain it. When I first saw that, I even recall Cecil telling him, like, "Hey, man, this isn't the first one you fall in." Like he told him in so many words,
Yeah, he
like,
does say that. He says
"This
it.
is yeah, this isn't your first love. You've been through this before." But he even broke, and he's like, "Not this one. This one was different." Like in so
Yeah.
many words, like, "No, this one was different." And it hit him, like you said. I mean, I think your explanation of it makes that a lot more clear why it was so special.
I mean, to me, that's reading between the lines. It's not like that was said in the comics or anything. That's just my takeaway on the character. I feel like because there's so many stories that are like, I've gotten used to people dying in front of me, or or I never get used to it, or whatever. But the idea of having this sudden, and it wasn't like it was a sudden fling and it was ended. It was a sudden fling that was at the peak of it.
I love that fight, just the animations and the fact that like Shrinking Ray, like she just got inside his body and coming out and getting crushed and
It's what everybody
that
was
whole
asking
thing.
for Thanos.
Exactly. Do it to him. Jump in his mouth and just go big, kill him. But the guy's strong enough, constrict, and it's over. And Rex Blow getting shot in the fucking head and still coming back and beating him with a nub of his arm. Like
God,
everything said he had to die.
that was intense.
Everything said he had to die. And he pulled through. And then we find out this other side of him. Just very relaxed, very friendly with Adam Eve. He wants to read fashion. What is it?
The
Interior decorative
architecture
magazines,
magazines and stuff. Yeah,
architecture magazines. Like, who would have thought? I thought he'd be drinking monsters and like
You can do
playing
both.
Pantera. You know?
But here's the thing. What part of why I didn't love Walking Dead as a comic book is that it was just the same thing over and over again. It was dark and got darker. When they were twists on the same theme, right? But part of what I loved Invincible is that the whole series is a love letter to superhero fiction. Like, even though there is a main plot and all the stuff like that, every character is a reference to something else. Every event is a reference to something else. And in comics, so often the idea that death is a joke in comics, that you die and you don't really die because if you didn't see a body, they're back to life again. So Kirkman, turns that on his head and said, I'm going to show you this guy dying in the most brutal, violent way ever, and then bring him back to life. And it's like, you know what? I can respect that. I respect that because it's like, yeah, the trope is that comic book characters keep coming back to life, but by going so many steps beyond and then saying, oh no, it was a head wound. He's okay.
Like, he's still gonna come back and say, "Oh, I don't know," but this show, and to move forward, right? And we're gonna step onto the next conversation, which permadeath will be a big topic.
Yeah,
Definitely. But what are your thoughts on the film adaptation coming out? I know we never really talked about it, but
there's a film adaptation. I earnestly
yeah,
don't know.
Seth. Oh my God, he plays Alan. What's his name? Seth Rogen.
Yeah,
he's writing it.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I for years have not liked Seth Rogen just on principle, primarily because of one movie and one movie only. But I'll get to that in a second. But he is kind of
what movie?
He's kind of one. No, it's not what you think it is. He's kind of won me over with his portrayal of Alan because I never would have thought he'd be so perfect for a character. And he also won me over a lot with Mutant Mayhem. That Ninja Turtles movie was great. It should have been nominated for an Oscar. It really should have. So you know what? I'd like to see
that far.
Huh?
It was good, but not.
No, I'm saying
what Academy would have gotten.
The animated film. I didn't say it should have won the Oscar. I said it should have been nominated. I don't remember.
It was great.
There was one movie from I think Disney that I think was okay, but definitely should have been on the list. I don't remember what it was. All right, so that movie, by the way, that is why I don't like Seth Rogen, is The Green Hornet. And
yeah, I agree.
But no,
Green Hornet was.
But no, not because the movie's bad. I don't care. He can make bad movies. I have no problem with that. Yes, I have loved Green Hornet as a character that it goes back to the 1930s. I like this.
Like Kato was pretty badass in that movie. I mean,
but here's the problem. Stephen Chow is my favorite Chinese director. He made Shaolin Soccer, for example, and Kung Fu Hustle. Although I'm not Kung Fu Hustle is my least favorite of his movies, but it's most Americans' favorite. Whatever. Point is, he is a funny director. He's a great action star. Green Hornet was supposed to be his American debut. he was going to direct the movie and be Kato. It would have been Bruce Lee all over again, but with comedy. And I was here for that movie. But all Seth Rogen wanted to do was make a stoner comedy. So Stephen Chow quit and never did an American film ever. He's now retired from acting. He still directs movies, but he's retired from acting, saying he's too old to be an action hero, despite the fact that he's younger than Keanu Reeves and all these guys. But we could have had a Stephen Chow movie, every other year, just like we get like a Jackie Chan movie every other year, and every other year he does a Chinese movie. We could have had these things, and it's all Seth Rogen's fault. Cannot.
Shaolin Soccer's fun.
It is the best.
All those, it's a lot of fun. I mean, Kung Fu Hustle, and then.
Well, again, I've seen a lot of his other movies, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But the point is, I am starting to forgive, or at the very least respect, Seth Rogen because of Invincible and Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah, he's writing the Invincible live action film. So what are your thoughts on that? If that's something that maybe should not be done, are we?
My only compunction on it is I don't see a purpose for it. Like if you think of Star Wars, right?
Okay.
Star Wars is a universe. You could pick any point in the universe and tell a story there, right? But then you think of Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is a very specific story. And why do you need to retell that same very specific story in a movie? And it didn't work well in the movie. It worked moderately okay in the Netflix series, but like it didn't need to be retold the exact same way. We are already retelling Invincible as a story in the cartoon. Are they just going to hit the same beats in the movie? And if they don't hit the same beats in the movie, then are they going to refer to them? Like maybe it takes place between seasons and it's actually in continuity with the cartoon. That'd be neat. But like, I can't figure out what purpose that would have other than just to exist.
I don't know. I remember vaguely, maybe I'll do more research for next time when we discuss it, but I do believe that there is a different path they're going to go with on the live action. But like you said, why would you not follow a lot of these same beats? Because you need to. That is the story, right?
Literally that character's story. It's called Invincible. It's his story.
I'm curious. I don't know. I'm excited for more Invincible. Animated.
I'm excited for next season. Like, all I know is I saw a little bit of the cast for season 3, and the one name that popped up was Michael Dorn, and I'm like, yes. He had one little tiny cameo in season 1 as this white furry lion cat person, and he was a flunky for the mafioso guy, and I'm like,
yeah, I remember.
I need Battle Beast. I need him back because he is such a cool character in the comics, and that he's Worf. Cool. He is Worf in the show, and he wasn't in this season at all. But we are so going to get him next season, and I'm so excited.
It'll be fun. I'm excited for Invincible. I mean, overall, the season was great. I think obviously better than season 1.
Well, obviously, but season 1 was an eye opener just in the nature of what it was. So it's kind of like how I compare Guardians of the Galaxy 1 to 2. 2 may be a better overall movie, but 1 just did so much to prove what they could do. It's
like Iron Man. Like Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
But Primos, stay tuned. We'll get into our Xmen talk.
Ta-da!
We're back, Primos. Thanks so much for hanging in with us tonight. And we are going to talk about Xmen 97, Kevin Garcia. I want to talk about this show. And it's spoilers, guys. This whole episode spoilers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I'm taking away from this show right now.
It's good that we're warning you about spoilers halfway through the episode.
We're good at that. We always do that. Every single spoiler show, we tell you halfway through the show to go watch it and come back.
Hey, but we told you eventually.
My wife said that I had to mention this. So here it is. Why did they have to kill Gambit?
Because it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was fucking tragic.
That's the thing. Okay, look. So in the original series, back in 92, they brought in Morph. And a lot of people think Morph is a brand new character. Morph is actually not a brand new character. Morph was Changeling back in the 60s. And he was like a one-off character that showed up for an issue as a bad guy, and that was it. And then Professor X suddenly died, and we're like, no. But what happened is that Morph's character had made an agreement with Professor X to help him out because Professor X had to go into hiding to take care of something. So out in public, he was the professor as far as the X-Men are concerned. The only one who knew the truth was Jean Grey. But then he got killed as Professor X, and they buried him. So he was basically the first X-Men to die, and he died as somebody else. They buried him as Professor
That's
X.
crazy.
And then a few issues later, they're like, oh, by the way, Charles is alive, blah, blah, blah. And they never mention him again. Even recently in the comics, they had this whole thing where the X-Men could bring people back to life. And they don't bring back the first guy that died. They don't bring him back. He died and no one remembered him. It's horrible. But in the show, they wanted to say that X-Men was different from other Saturday morning cartoons. They wanted to say that there were real stakes. So in the first episode or two, they killed off one of the X-Men. And obviously they can't do that with any of the name characters. So they brought in a really super obscure character, changed his name because of copyright reasons. Changeling is more associated with Teen Titans by this point, the name Changeling. And they killed him off. And it was significant for 12-year-old me to see a character in a show die in the first couple episodes, and the intention not to bring him back, although eventually they did, obviously. But like we were just saying a second ago with Robert Kirkman, that so often in the comics, they will kill a character and bring him back. Like it doesn't matter. So it's only when deaths have weight in comics that it means something. So even like, I'll give you an example. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, right?
Yeah.
He has probably died a couple times, but his most significant death was about 10, 12 years ago, right? And it was such a good death. Like it was built up. There were so many things going on in the world. It was a sacrifice for everybody. And the way he died was just intense. And yeah, they brought him back to life later, but it doesn't matter because it was so well done. And I don't know if they'll bring Gambit back, but I will say that time travel is a big part of this season.
This is where I was going to talk about permadeath. So in the most recent episode, Cable made it sound like that he has kept trying to stop this attack in Genosha. Yes. And he can't change it.
Which, by the way, is great because it explains something that a lot of fans were like, what the hell was he doing in Genosha in the old series? Because in the old series, they would throw in cameos just for the heck of it whenever there was like a reason to throw in a cameo.
Yeah.
Like, it was just for the hell of it. And so Cable shows up in Genosha.
Service.
It was fan service. So he shows up in Genosha, and it's like, well, what's the point of that? And then here, it's now retroactively explained that he'd been trying to prevent the greatest tragedy of mutant kind. He knew Sentinels were involved. He knew Genosha was involved. So he kept going to those spots. And I'm like, damn, how do you make such a silly, poorly done episode from like, I think season 2 of the first series, maybe season 1.
Yeah,
make it make sense. Make it make sense.
But dude, episode 5 is so filled with so many impactful things, right?
Yeah. It blew
just
people.
The acting alone.
They're like, I have to take a breather because of episode 5.
Yeah, you need to take a moment. Like Gambit, first of all, it's just like in the span of a day, Rogue confirms, "Hey, I'm gonna marry Magneto just for politics."
Because she has needs.
She has needs, and he can't touch, but she can feel him. You know, all these words, these phrases, well written. Mm-hmm. And Gambit was in pain. The fact that he even told her, like, you don't want to put a label on this thing. You asked me to do these things, even though you didn't outright say it. I abided. I did those things for you.
Yep.
You know, and it was something along the lines of, like, the feelings I have for you are more than just skin deep, right? Something along those lines.
More than
and
skin.
More than skin, right? And then we get to the original, his catchphrase. The name is Gambit. Remember it. And I saw when he got stabbed by that fucking sentinel. I'm like, he's gonna blow it up.
Oh my god! As soon as it was so well done, so well done. And you know what? I want to get to that whole scene for a second because in the comics, it is like a couple pages of Sentinel Destruction. The only X-Men related character who's on site is Emma Frost, and we don't get to see her experiencing it. We see her right before the event, and we see her being
And
found
after.
in the rubble, but that's it.
Yeah.
And so here we actually get to experience it with the characters, and I 100% love that we also get to see Cyclops and Jean Grey watching it on TV, because literally it's an 9/11 allegory, right? But my point is that I kind of wish we got Jubilee's reaction as a younger person watching it. I wish we had seen that. We didn't get to see her till the funeral. But it was just so impactful. And then not only that, but to fight back in a way that is, in one way, inconsequential because the damage had been done, but in another way, cathartic, because while he died for the people. You know, he didn't die for Rogue. He didn't die for him. He died for everybody that he never met. And I was like, that was perfect. That was perfect. I think
It was an amazing death.
Yes, it was. It was 100%. Yeah, I think if she had told him, by the way, I chose you, it would have, number one, been awkward because he's like, no, that's not how that works. And number two, even if he was like, yay, she chose me, then it's tragic that he never found out. But I also think it's better because it says so much for his act, you know?
Yeah, it's permanent. What he did means something, because death wouldn't be impactful if it just gets reversible, like when they get to Krakoa or whatever in those newer X-Men books, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying death can be meaningful even if it's reversible, depending on how it's done. Number one, how the death dies, how the death ends, and number two, how they are brought back. Both are important. I'll give you an example. You saw Thor Ragnarok, right? So
Yeah.
That bald guy.
We give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, that bald guy with the guns, right? They Scourge the Executioner. He's kind of a joke character, and then at the very end, he's like, "I'll do this," and he jumps out and dies. And it's like, that was unnecessary. There's a Hulk right next door. Like, what is even going on? There's like 20 gladiators that are almost Hulk right next to you. You know what I mean? It was dumb. But in the comics, it is one of the most impactful deaths that has been in comics, and he stayed dead for 30 years. And then they recently brought him back, and it's just like, oh yeah, he's back. He's being a henchman again. And I'm like, man, I'm not saying you can't bring him back, but that return needs to be as epic as the death. And for Johnny Storm, I mentioned his death. When they brought him back, we found out that he was dying and being reborn every other day in the process that was bringing him back. And it was a whole, and when he did come back, he led a revolution that freed a universe. So I'm like, yeah, that's how you kill a character and bring him back and have both things mean something. And I feel like with Gambit, he can either stay dead or come back. But if he comes back, it's got to mean something too.
This is the thing. I think that they won't bring him back because that death meant so much. And that's what drives Rogue and even Cyclops to break character. Because Cyclops was already on the edge, man. Dealing with everything with his son, with the 2 genes. And then even that fucking reporter poking and prodding at him that made him lose his shit on TV. Like, I can understand that.
So,
but that death. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, continue. I want to add something that you're done with that.
So this allows Cyclops to break that, as Wolverine says, as the Boy Scout. Yeah. You know, they break that character because we know he has a rage in him. If you read the comic book, Cyclops is. There's what was a scene that I remember reading where it's like he takes down the Sentinels like with this huge blast, and Wolverine goes like, "Now I remember why you're the leader." You know, like he is a badass, and he hasn't had a chance to really be that human being, not just the mutant leader, but the human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really liked where they went there. Gambit pushed him over the edge, and we'll see where Cyclops goes from here.
So here's my hesitancy on that. You know, when you say Rogue and Cyclops breaking character, all right, that's a red flag for me, because when I'm reading a comic book and it's an ongoing universe, like if it's a manga or something where there's like a set ending and beginning, that's different. But when it's an ongoing universe and a character goes through a massive, unbelievable tragedy, and then acts 100% out of character. This tells me as a reader, this is going to be reset. So when Rogue kills a guy who deserves to die, I mean, I don't mean that like in a vengeful sense. I mean, like literally, the longer this guy lives, the worse things happen. Period. It's like it's the whole Joker Batman argument. Yeah, Trask.
Yeah.
And then I don't expect in the comics, Hawkeye in the Avengers is always that character of like, no, we could never stop doing that. We always have to be good. But like Cyclops, even though he's not opposed to an enemy dying, he never wants it to be like purposeful in this sense, if that makes sense. So the fact that he said nothing, and then we get Magneto, who in the comics and in the movies eventually becomes one of the most stalwart defenders of the X-Men.
Yeah.
And he was headed that direction in a very good, tentative way. And then when you kill Genosha and him in the middle of it, and then the whole bit with Bastion torturing him, everything about that is telling me that, well, they're either going to turn Magneto into the villain that everybody has to fight, or we're going to get a reset. And I don't want a reset, but I feel like it's coming.
A reset would sullen this episode. It would really kind of go, oh man, really? Again, it would make me hesitate to keep watching.
Again, it depends on how. Like I use Infinity War.
If it's a fucking dream
no,
something, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Let me use Infinity War as an example. All right. Okay. So in the movie Infinity War and Endgame, half the universe dies, and the heroes go fight back. But at the end of Endgame, everyone in the universe still remembers that horror. Yeah, they came back, but that doesn't change the trauma that happened, right? Well, in the comics, they fixed it, and only the heroes were cursed with that memory. And to me, that could still be impactful. That kind of a thing can still be something. If you found a way to bring back, Leech and the little kids in Genosha.
Yeah.
But the X-Men remember everything they had to go through. That can still be
That's their cross to bear.
Yeah. Maybe they get accepted by the people, but in fixing it, that part goes away,
Okay, so if we have a reset, are we having a reset?
By the way, for the record, this is all just in my head. I have no idea what could happen.
I mean, you're KevinGarcia.com at TikTok and Instagram.
Somebody just tagged me in a video and said drkevingarcia.com, and I'm like, dang, I just got to
Kevin, man, summer's here. Take some summer classes.
Look, I have my friends keep telling me to just finish because I already have a master's. They tell me to go back, get the doctorate. I don't want to go back. It's too much work.
But back to X-Men.
Yeah.
And so we're getting close to the end of the season here. Mm-hmm. Next episode would be the final one.
Well, I want to ask you. So I just did a video on TikTok talking about what they called OZT in the episode where Trask dies, right? Operation Zero Tolerance. And going back to reread that storyline, I was fascinated by something because I remember reading it as a kid when it first came out, right? And in the storyline, this guy Bastion shows up, and he just immediately just sweet talks all the politicians and military people and everybody into giving him the power to essentially create death squads to go after mutants, right? And then he sells this to the general public. He flat out tells the public, by the way, we have a thing called Operation Zero Tolerance, and you're going to love it. And the public does love it. And the reason the public loves it is I have to keep explaining to people over and over again. They're like, why in the Marvel Universe do people hate mutants and not other superheroes? And what it comes down to is when somebody is a superhero, even if you're an X-Men, doesn't matter. You chose to wear a costume. You have powers. Maybe you got them in an accident. Maybe you're born them. It doesn't matter. You're a superhero. The trouble with mutants is most of them aren't superheroes. They're not even supervillains. Anybody in your neighborhood could have the power to destroy a city if they sneeze wrong. That's a scary thing for people. And when Bastion shows up and says, hey, we're going to take them all humanely and move them away where it's not going to hurt you anymore, the general public eats it up and loves it. And what's interesting about the comic book series is that in the storyline of Operation Zero Tolerance in the comics, the X-Men have one really big win where they take out his base, but they're still going to lose the war because he's got these Prime Sentinels, which are basically any human being that got transformed into a robot by him now as a Prime Sentinel all over the world. They can just take out any mutant anytime. Even though they got that one big win, they're still losing. And what's crazy to me is how that story ends. After like 20 issues of buildup, it ends in one page. Because literally, he's about to call down all of his troops to destroy the last remaining Xmen, when suddenly S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up and says, yeah, the president told you to stand down. We removed your authority. And he goes, okay, Sentinels, stand down. And you're like, why did that happen? Well, because throughout the story, we get things like Senator Kelly, who had long been an enemy of mutants, but had grown to trust and respect the X-Men, fighting politically to make sure this doesn't happen. And then you have J. Jonah Jameson, who is famous for attacking one particular superhero.
True.
Saying, you can't just go after innocent people because they have powers. And using everything in his media empire, because remember, he's not just an editor, he's a publisher of an entire media empire, to point out everything that Operation Zero Tolerance is doing against humankind, and it's what I call that is allyship, where you have humans that are literally risking their jobs to help out a minority class that is put down. They're the ones that save the day. And they didn't even get a lot of like screen time in the comic. It was just that. Now, we don't get that in the show. In the show, Magneto escapes Bastion, or not escapes, is freed, and then just literally single-handedly shuts every single machine in the world down because he's freaking Magneto. But like, I like that concept, even though it wasn't really emphasized a lot in the comic book. It's still technically there, that it was allyship that actually, like true allyship, not just like Val Cooper in the comics claims to be an ally, but she's always, since day one, been working with the people who want to destroy mutants. And her argument is, well, no, it's because I'm trying to keep them under control, and I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't go too far. But other people were saying, no, even if it means I lose my job, I'm going to try to stop these people. And what's interesting is they went the opposite direction in the show. In the show, Valerie Cooper is the one who ends up risking everything, her life, to help the mutants, as opposed to being the quote ally, only in the comic.
Yeah.
And Trish Tribley, you're saying that horrible reporter in the comics, she really is Beast's girlfriend, and they were together for a good long time. And I was actually looking forward to that. And he's not getting.
I like that Beast told her off.
Yeah, and
I loved it.
Yeah, and now she's not there anymore. So my question is, they're not going to do the whole allyship thing. That's not something they're going to do in the show. What do you think that's going to happen next? And where do you think they'll go in the already guaranteed season 98, I guess?
3?
Well,
they got to do 2 and 3.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I don't feel like they're going to call it 97 season 2. I feel like they're going to call it Xmen 98 probably. Because they keep referencing specific years. They keep saying, you've been doing this since 92. And like, they're literally having them age year by year. So that's pretty interesting.
I think that Xavier is going to come back with the Force. I don't think we're going to see. Am I crazy, Kevin? This is a topic for another show. Would we ever see Onslaught? We see the Xavier Magneto, like,
I feel like we will.
Like that Onslaught character coming back to saying, like, I've done my peaceful job. Now I'm going to be the war.
You know what?
Xavier's going to flip, man.
That is an argument against my whole reset button. Because my reset button, part of that is Magneto's journey. And if this makes Magneto snap, as it looks like it will, and he will go too far, and Xavier has to shut him down, well, that leads to Onslaught. That's how that works. I'm down. You got me sold. There are two storylines that I want to see in the next season or the one after. One is I want a proper Age of Apocalypse that lasts at least.
I was thinking Apocalypse.
Yeah. At least 2 episodes. I don't want just 1 episode of it. I want 2 or 3 episodes of this. And the other one, and this is the one I really want, is we finally have confirmation in the show that Cable is Cyclops' kid, right?
Yes.
And one thing that's fascinating to me about Cable of the series that is not true of Cable in the comics is that Cable of the series 100% views Madeline Pryor as his mom. Whereas in the series, in the comics, he's just like, oh, there's that villain, Madeline Pryor again, even though she is technically his birth mother. So I think that's fascinating. But and the people complain about Cyclops not being a great dad, and he's better in the show than in the comics.
Yeah.
But there's one storyline I want so bad.
Which is?
It's called The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. And Cyclops and Phoenix go on vacation. They finally get away from the X-Mansion for like a week. But while they're gone, their minds get pulled out of their bodies and put into brand new bodies centuries in the future. And when they get there, baby Nathan has just arrived.
Oh,
and they
that'd be
raised
fucking
him.
cool.
They raised him from birth almost to age 2, I guess, almost more or less, to age 15, and then they have to leave. And it's a massive journey. It's a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite comics. The artist Gene Ha, I've talked to him several times about how his work there gave me a new way of looking at the future, because he completely did stuff there that I'd never seen in other comics about the future. And it's such a good story. And then what I love about it is, after that story's over, by the way, for everybody in the present, they were only gone for a couple days. But for them, they were gone 15 years, And when they come back, Cyclops goes to go talk to Cable, and he's like, hey, there's something you need to know. And Cable's like, yeah, no, I knew you were my adopted dad. I just been waiting for you to find out. And I'm like, damn, I love this. It's so beautiful.
I think that'd be great. Which, in my head, I was thinking Onslaught, right? That was my main thing. Like, if we go into Onslaught, that'd be dope. But also, why wouldn't we peak? Are we too far removed in 98 to Krakoa?
Well, I would say yes, except we already got Genosha with the Sentinel, which is from 2004, I think. So they really, they're not. I honestly thought they were going to limit themselves to stuff that appeared before 97. In fact, my friend of mine is disappointed. He's like, as much as I love the show, I wanted that artificial boundary. He wanted that illusion that it stopped in 97, Because
that can lead into, talking about the Phoenix, like the Hellfire Gala, right?
Oh, yeah.
When they
100%. We're going to get something like the Hellfire Gala next season.
That would be amazing.
They may not call it the Hellfire Gala. Maybe they'll call it something else. But we kind of got it this season. But, with the Genosha, thing,
the Genosha.
They didn't go all out. They could have gone all out with the costumes. And Storm wasn't there. Storm always, to use the phrase,
shows out.
To use the phrase of the kids these days, she eats. But
she eats.
But the thing
she is her.
Yeah, she is her. But yeah, so I want. I actually hadn't thought about Onslaught till you said it, but now I do want Onslaught, especially with
Onslaught, man. Overlooked. When that would fit because of Magneto pushing, just breaking, and then Xavier.
Instead of Onslaught leading into Heroes Reborn, I would have Onslaught lead into Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've fallen into fan fiction here, man. We've fallen into fan fiction. But still, stuff we'd love to see.
We need to rein in those expectations. We'll watch the last episode. I'm sure we'll mention on the next one. Ooh. But I want to thank Mr. Kevin Garcia, as always, for being that fountain of knowledge when it comes to Marvel and especially the X-Men. But Primos, especially you all, for hanging in there with us. I know we haven't been consistent as usual, but hey, Heaven and Earth took 7 days, and it takes a while to get things done. And honestly, just life gets in the way sometimes. But we still enjoy doing this. We still have a great time chatting with you on all the social media. Those of you that have reached out to me to be on the show, we will make it happen. I can guarantee that. We just got to get the calendars all in sync. I know breaks are coming up here for the summer, so I'll make things easier for everybody.
Oh yeah, I'll be way
But before we leave, Kevin, is there anything you want to promote? Anything you want to bring up before we end the show tonight?
Yeah, coming up, I just did Staple Independent Media Expo, which is something that had not happened since prior to the pandemic. And oh man, it was always the best. I every time, it's basically a Comic-Con that is just Artist Alley, and
sounds cool.
The best artists ever. I want something from every table, but I can't afford it. Oh, so good. We got to meet so many good artists. So I did that a few weeks ago. But coming up, I'll be at Comic Palooza, and which is in Houston. It's the biggest Comic-Con in Houston, I think. And I've been doing that every year for several years now. I'll be doing a talk about the hero's journey and how that's not something that should be used for writing movies, even though it is. I'll be doing some panels with fellow creators, both indie creators and BIPOC creators, and I'm looking forward to that. And that's May 24th through 26th. But in the middle of that, I am going to be part of a Comics for the Cure, a streaming event with other comic book TikTokers and YouTubers who
Cool.
are trying to raise money to help to help, right? And just maybe not to the same level as Elia's dedication, I understand, but there's going to be a bunch of us there. And if you want to know more about it, check out I mentioned him earlier, Comic Drake on YouTube. He's going to be talking about it. He's going to talk about it in social media, and it is definitely something that I'm looking forward to. The one downside, though, is that the streaming event is going to involve Fortnite. I've only played that once, and it went very badly.
You may need to call Elia for help.
Yeah.
Definitely, Primos. Well, I want to take the time here to thank everybody, of course, for checking in with us. Just share the show. And I ask that everybody look over and look after each other. Check in with those that you haven't checked in with in a while. Think about it. When that person comes to mind, just reach out to them. Nowadays, it's that simple because you never know what somebody's going through. And I know, Primos, we're all about community here on the creative side, but also love and care for one another. And Primos, as always, no matter where you're from, we're all Primos.
And you know what?
Adios.
If you feel like it's really bad, don't fall into being a rogue. Be a morph. All right.
You didn't hold a straight face, Kevin. Couldn't do it.
All right. Bye, Primos.
Adios.
We out.
Entre espinar salta mi amor.